Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well out there. Well, it could be afternoon for you. Could be middle of the night. Could be tomorrow. I have no idea where you are, but welcome. Pumped to be here. As usual, I really do love live streams, and we already have a few comments in here, so thanks for joining me this evening. Yeah. All right. Lots of cool stuff to talk about, I'm sure. So as usual, I will talk about a couple things. There's one main thing I want to talk about, and then, of course, I'm here to answer questions, have a discussion about any sort of thing you want to talk about, camera related, content creation, all that kind of stuff, like usual. So welcome. Thanks for being here already. Hello. I have some questions. You owe me answers. All right. Well, I'm here for that. What's up, Jay? Good to see you in here, buddy. Good to see you in here too. Thanks for coming. I love seeing all the familiar faces in here. So thanks so much for coming in tonight. Hi, Sam. Give everyone a minute to chime in, and before we get started, Mr. Camera Junkie, hello, good seeing you here too. All right, so I don't want to waste anyone's time. I know everyone likes to hang out and listen to me talk. I guess that's why you're here. I decided to use a different microphone tonight, just for no reason, just to switch things up. Anyways, I did switch on my office. No one commented, but maybe nobody even noticed because I keep it pretty dark and moody. But as I keep promising, I will do an office sort of studio tour and setup and all that kind of stuff. At some point, I'm still dialing things in, but you know what I've realized is that no one ever gets it fully dialed in. You're always changing things around, but I just wanted to have a little bit more space behind me. I moved my desk up, and I'm not using that paper backdrop that I had before, so I do really like this. Anyways, one thing I do want to mention is that I do love live streaming for a lot of reasons. Sometimes I have to decide if it's worth it or not because it does take time and energy, and I don't know. But the reality is that I don't see a lot of people live streaming because for whatever reason, I don't know if people just don't like to be like unscripted or unedited. I'm not really sure, or maybe it's not worth their time. But what I found over, the last 3.5 years of being on YouTube, is that really why I do YouTube is to provide value for all of you watching. So if it's information, entertainment, community, just providing value is really important. And I find that when I'm doing live streams, I actually get to connect, answer questions, chat, and just feel a little bit more connected, because if you haven't done YouTube before, you post a video, you get comments, that's about it, right? So it's really nice to be able to interact, and really when I try to decide about what kind of content I'm making, I'm really thinking about all of you out there and trying to provide as much value as possible. So anyways, that's why I love live streaming, and I continue to do it even if it's maybe not that beneficial for the channel. I'm not really sure. I think the jury's still out about that. Anyways, if you're watching this and you aren't already subscribed, please hit subscribe down below. It means a ton, and I kind of just casually ask for a subscribe every once in a while, and it's just the sort of thing I say standard at the end of my videos, but it really does make a huge difference, more than you know. And the other thing I want to mention is I am doing coaching calls or consulting calls. I've started doing that, and there is a link down in the description below. I've done some calls already, and they've been really, really cool. Just if you want to get on and talk about camera gear, content creation, you just want to hang out and chat with me for half an hour, it's really easy to sign up, and it works really well. So I just want to mention that. I'll probably start pitching that a little bit more often, because it's just another way for me to provide value for everybody. Also, there are affiliate links in the description down below if you want to check out any of the gear that I use, or you want to buy anything through those links. They don't cost you anything extra. Now, this isn't just for me, but other creators that you like. There's ways to support them by subscribing, sharing videos, liking their content, hitting the like button, using their affiliate links. So anytime that you're looking to support a creator, I always recommend that you click through someone's affiliate link that you want to support, and they'll get a kickback for it, and that stuff goes a long way. So I really do appreciate that. So again, hit subscribe down below. Okay, so as usual, I have a short list of things I want to talk about, and then we will take questions. But the first thing is that I did pre-order the R6 Mark II. I'm just hoping I get it in the first round of shipment. I got my order in like 45 minutes after the pre-order opened, which was at midnight my time. And it was crazy. They released it at such a weird time, but it was, of course, like not midnight for, in Japan or wherever like the main headquarters is. So I had trouble ordering it. I was ready to go, but it was weird. I was like logged in, and I couldn't order it until I like logged out of B&H. So I got it in. Hopefully I get it right away. Hopefully there weren't too many people up at midnight waiting to pre-order the camera. It wasn't even like you had to really be following the rumors and stuff to know that that was even happening. So hopefully I get it. I am really excited about the R6 Mark II. I've already made a video about it, talking about it. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic camera. I think it's really going to be a strong competitor with the A7 IV, which for that sort of, you know, entry level, full frame, prosumer level camera, it's gonna be pretty killer. It's gonna be pretty awesome. All right, so the main thing I do want to talk about, and I do see some comments in here. I will get to those. So if you have questions, please get them in. And after I'm done talking about this, I will go through the comments. I want to talk about the FX30 a little bit tonight, especially the dual base ISO issue, because I made a video, I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago now, about the dual base ISO and low light performance of the FX30 and compared it with the R7. And I got a lot of people worked up about it, and I just was sharing my results. It was really interesting because I even saw multiple reaction videos, which I don't create content to create a stir with people on purpose. It's just like I'm sharing my results. And so I want to talk about some of that a little bit tonight, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about dual base ISO, and I didn't want to make a separate video about it, but I figured we could talk about it now because I think all of us are kind of interested in this. So first of all, let's talk about, I think I fixed the issue with the internet thing here. Let me do this. Okay. Audio sound good, everybody? The last time I tried this, I screwed it up. So first of all, if you look at this is the Sony FX30 on the Sony website, it does say, and this was actually in my video, I put this little screen grab in there, it says it has a dual base ISO. So that is something that's very different about this camera. And the reason why it's different is that, let me go back to this. I suck at Ecamm, by the way. I need to get better at it. The reason why this is important is that until recently, the only cameras that Sony was making that had a dual base ISO technically was the FX9 and the Venice. When the A7S III and the FX3 came out, a lot of people were saying, oh, it has a dual base ISO because, you know, they saw the image cleaning up from going from 10,000 to 12,800, which is true. But Sony came out and corrected a lot of people and said that it's actually a dual sensitivity ISO. And the reason they said that is that because when they have a dual base ISO on a camera, it is their only, they have a very strict set of guidelines to what makes a dual base ISO. It's like a much stricter tolerance, and it has to do with dynamic range and noise between the two bases. Now, there's a reason why they didn't say the A7S III and the FX3 and the FX6 weren't dual bases, but dual sensitivity ISOs, is because they weren't as strict between those two bases in terms of dynamic range and noise. They saved that designation for dual base ISO for the FX9 and the Venice. Now, the FX30 comes out and it says dual base ISO. So a lot of this is tricky because it's just their own definitions. And that's what I was going by. Like, I looked at the definitions, I saw what they were saying. It's dual base ISO. So let me go back here and show you this. I apologize for being so slow with this program. Okay, so this here, this is on the Sony Cine website. This is an article written by Alistair Chapman. And this article was written July 5th, 2021. So this is after the release of the A7S III and the FX3. So keep that in mind. And so what if we could operate the sensor at two different sensitivity levels without significantly changing the noise levels or dynamic range? That is what dual ISO brings. And here it says the low and high sensitivities have almost exactly the same noise levels and both have the same dynamic range. So almost exactly is the words that they're using here, and same dynamic range. So that's what I was concerned about. Now, I didn't test the dynamic range. So let me switch this back up again. So I didn't test the dynamic range because Gerald had done it, and he had showed that the low and the high bass on the FX30 was within like 0.3 of a stop. So he's like, all right, it's close enough. So I didn't test that. But what I did look at was the noise. And what I showed in that video was that if you look at the noise between 2000 and 2500, the image did not clean up. And both of those were properly exposed using a gray card based on Sony's settings and what you're supposed to do, their recommendations. And so what I saw was it did not clean up. And in fact, it got slightly noisier going from 2000 to 2500. Now, the definition of dual base ISO is almost exactly the same noise at 800 and 2500. But 2500 was noisier than 2000. So then in that video, I also compared 800 and 2500, both in flexible ISO and also in Cine. And you could see that it was noisier at 2500. Now, almost exactly doesn't mean the same. And I mixed up my language a little bit in the video, and I said the same, but it almost exactly is pretty close. And the other thing, the main reason why I wanted to make that video was that if you bought the FX30 and this was maybe a stretch for you, maybe this was your first proper video camera, maybe this is your first professional video tool, and you get it, and Sony is selling you a dual base system, and you look at the image at 2000, 2500, and you see that it gets noisier, I would be pretty upset. And that's why I made the video. I'm trying to provide value for everybody, and based on the noise that I saw, and everyone else could see because I shared it with everybody, and the definition, I was like, it's not acting like a true dual base system, and it's being sold as dual base system. So anyways, I wanted to clear that up. Hopefully that clears it up a little bit. But in terms of dynamic range and noise in different ways, and I can get into this further if you guys want to talk about this. I can get crazy nerdy about this stuff because I love this stuff. But I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's a little unfair if you're a Sony customer and you're sold that in a camera that has a dual sensitivity ISO, which is, you know, not as strict of a guideline, it performs better in terms of noise. Now, most people will say, okay, cool, it has the same dynamic range, but the biggest selling point about a dual base system for most people buying cameras is that it gets cleaner. There's less noise, right? Everyone's always said, oh, get up to the second base ISO, you'll have a cleaner image. Anyways, so I saw a lot of people doing lens cap testing, which shows you the noise in the shadows, and there is something going on at 2500, and I do believe that this camera does have a separate, you know, ISO sensitivity circuit at 2500, but in terms of the noise and Sony's own definition, I have trouble saying it's fully a dual base system based on their own definition. So anyways, sorry to go on that for too long. If you're not interested in that, I'm sorry. There's one other thing I want to mention about that video, in that I got a color shift, which I mentioned, comparing it against the R7. And what I did later is I did my testing a little bit differently in the next video against the FX3, is that instead of changing the light intensity, I just cranked up the shutter just to keep the light intensity the same. And I didn't notice the color shift. But what was really interesting was that in that R7 versus FX30 video, there was no color shift on the R7. Because if I got a color shift on both of them, I would have been like, something's wrong. But the fact that I saw a color shift, on the FX30 and not on the R7 was pretty weird. Anyways, hopefully that clears some of that up if you guys were interested in any of that stuff. But I found it really interesting that most of the people making reaction videos and, you know, complaining and stuff like that they were just looking at one part of it, and no one would actually like look at the noise at 2000 versus 2500, which is really the main thing I wanted to talk about. Anyways, enough of that. All right, let's stop talking about FX30 dual base ISO. I'm here to answer questions and hang out with you guys, but I figured it's an opportunity for me to talk about this without making a separate dedicated video. Anyways, thank you for for coming and hanging out and listening to that little discussion. Again, if you want to get more into it, happy to talk about it, because there's things when you raise the ISO in a camera, you start shifting dynamic range around. And I made a really interesting video. First of all, if you want to check out that video, if you haven't seen it, it is linked down below. I also made a video about how you can change the ISO to shift your dynamic range. It's called like you're using ISO wrong or something like that. You can check out that too. And if you're interested in learning about Cine, which is one of the features in the FX30, ways to shoot, I did make a full video about it for the FX3, which is the same. And then tomorrow I'm putting out a video about just getting started using Cine on the FX30. So if you're interested in that video will be out tomorrow morning. It'll be really simple and like just getting started kind of stuff. So anyways, all right, let's see some questions here. I'm sick of talking about FX30 dual base ISOs. Let's see here. Canon M50 for my off-roading videos and started shooting my son's soccer games, looking at the R7, 4K and IBIS, use Sony A7 III or R7 or something else. Well, depending on the lenses that you have for the M50, if you have EFM lenses, you're going to have to get rid of those anyways because that system, they're not going to make any more of that stuff. Between the R7 and the A7 III, I would take an R7. You get 10-bit color. You're going to get better IBIS. You still have oversampling, which you get in the A7 III. You have more megapixels for photos if you want that. You do have a crop factor, but you know, you're doing off-road videos, so I don't know if that's a lot of interior stuff in a vehicle, but if you're outside, crop factor is not much as important. I would take the R7 over the A7 III for video, for sure. And if you have EF lenses or EFS lenses, those can easily be adapted to the R7. So hopefully I answered that question. Hey, Brandon, good seeing you here, buddy. All right, let's see here. FX30 or A7 IV. I'm going to actually I think I'm going to make this comparison video because it's interesting because they're similar, but not really. If you need a dedicated video camera that does not overheat, the FX30 is your bet for sure. The A7 IV, you can get to overheat. I've had it overheat before. It doesn't mean you can't use it in a lot of situations, but one of the reasons why I stopped using it a while ago was it overheated on me 3 times in the course of 3 weeks. And so once was outside, I was recording on and off for a couple hours. It was like 70, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Wasn't super hot. And then twice it overheated on me while I was doing a video call and recording internally. And it happened twice with different combinations of power inputs and stuff. So if you need a dedicated video camera that will not overheat no matter what, then FX30 or the FX3 is definitely a better bet. Hey, Chris. That's awesome. Oh, nice. Cool. Maybe something changed. You know, yeah, I don't know. I tried it with USB power. I'm trying to remember. This was a long time ago. I tried it with USB power and it overheated. And then I tried it with a dummy battery and it did overheat for me. But it was hard because I wanted to go back and like recreate the problem and I had trouble, which frustrates me beyond belief. I couldn't figure out exactly what setting. I don't know if I couldn't remember if I was outputting in 4K or outputting in 1080. Maybe I was outputting in 1080 and it was like double downsampling because it was downsampling to do 4K recording internally and it was downsampling to spit out 1080. But either way, I was recording internally and live streaming it. Well, I wasn't live streaming, but I was using the output from the camera. So that might have been what caused it. So if you're just live streaming, maybe it's not an issue. But again, I was doing something weird. I was doing like a podcast essentially where I was using the camera to talk to someone else and recording internally. And that's when it overheated on me twice. It's like 15 minutes after I pressed the record button. It was crazy. All right. Perhaps a deeper question. Has the camera market overheated? Oh, sorry. Overheated. Overwhelmed you a bit at all? Seems that there's so many cameras releasing so fast. Yeah. So the thing is like, yeah, you can't cover all the cameras. And, you know, for most channels out there, I'm not saying all the channels, but for a lot of channels out there, they cover like one brand. So you're just doing Sony, just doing Canon, just doing Fuji. Maybe once in a while, you know, talking about something else. And I think that's a little bit easier to keep up with the releases. There's also the financial issue of like, how do you get all these cameras? Because no one's sending me cameras right now. So I either have to buy them and sell them or, you know, whatever. It gets tricky. And then if I get the thing at launch and those sorts of things, for me, like I can't do every camera. And also like, I also think about like the sort of section of the camera market that I want to talk about because I focus on video. So for me, there's only certain cameras that I'm kind of interested in reviewing, if that makes sense. But yeah, it is overwhelming and it's hard to keep up with all the brands and all the rumors and all that stuff. But that's what makes it so much fun. There's like so much going on. So I don't know if you had like sort of follow-up questions to that, let me know. Hey, Justin, good to see you in here too. Oh, hey, Brandon, there's a PayPal link down below. No, I'm just kidding, Brandon. You've helped me a ton too, man. Doing great. Thank you so much. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, glass is a huge issue for Canon. It's hard. I mean, there's still amazing EF lenses, but no one wants to use them. Well, I'm not saying nobody. A lot of people still use them. In a lot of situations, the EF lenses still make more sense. So that's an option. But the RF lenses are just so expensive. They're amazing. They're totally amazing, but they are so expensive. And they're huge. And yeah, Sony's killing it with the lens market, the lens situation, especially with all the third-party options. And companies like Tamron are just, they keep releasing cool lenses, like that 20 to 40 they just put out, and like their 35 to 150, like really cool lenses. And you can't have one company like Canon being able to crank out all those kinds of lenses because they're just one company. But all these other companies can do that. So cool. Yeah, I mean, this is, I think about the FX30 being back ordered, like the R6 Mark II. If you didn't place an order like the day it came out, I'm sure you're not going to get it for a few months. I don't know if it's like an issue of they just can't manufacture enough, or is it also like they do this and then everyone wants it and then people want it even more. Like, I don't know. It's frustrating because they release a camera, it's in high demand, and you can't buy it. So, I mean, I would think they'd want to sell as many as possible. So it's probably an issue with production and distribution and all that stuff. So one thing I would recommend, if you're ever looking for a camera that's back ordered, that's came out recently, one of the best things you can do is buy it with the kit lens, or in the case of the FX30, buy it with the top handle. I was looking at B&H yesterday because I put out that video about the FX30 top handle, or the FX3 top handle, and I saw that the body only was like, I don't know if it changed today, but it was back ordered, but the one with the handle said shipped in 7 to 14 days. So sometimes you can order it in a sort of not body only, which I know everyone wants body only because they have lenses or they don't need other things. But if you're really dying to get it, you can get it, maybe sell off the accessories, maybe wind up using the accessories. The handle is awesome. Having XLR inputs is crazy cool. So that's one thing I do recommend if, you're trying to get the body earlier. What do you think if Sony updated the dual base ISO to at least 6400 with a firmware update? I know by fact that this could be possible since they did it with the FX3. So I don't think they can update the dual base system with firmware. I think it's a different circuit, like it's a physical circuit in the camera, and that's what makes it a dual base. The FX3 has always, so the base in the FX3 when it was launched and still in flexible flexible ISO mode, it's 640 and 12,800. If you're in Cine EI, it's 800 and 12,800. Again, it doesn't make any sense, but on the FX6, it was always 800 and 12,800. So I don't think they can shift where the second base kicks in. I think that's part of the hardware. I could be wrong, but the way I understand it, it's actually like it's circuitry and stuff. Thanks, Brandon. And to that point, for everyone who went and tried what I did and took a look and, I was in touch with, thanks for all the support for everybody out there. Hey, Cabra, I'm doing well. I'm a little tired, but that's usually the case when I'm doing live streams because it's the end of the evening for me. FX30 versus A7 III, I would take the FX30, again, for 10-bit video, newer color science. Yeah, I'm a video shooter. I don't really do much photography. So if you were doing more photography, you may want the A7 III for the full frame, but for video, FX30 for sure. Yo. Everyone go check out Reach Films. I did a podcast with Jeff, so go over to his channel and check it out. We got nerdy for like an hour about cameras. Also a great filmmaker in Florida, so it's got some cool content too. So go check out Jeff's channel. Bit too early to ask. Let's see here. Do I still recommend the R7 as a good B cam to the R5C, or spend a little bit more for the R6 Mark II? Either one. I think my answer is always pretty standard with this kind of question because I always say buy the camera or the gear that you need now, because there's always more cameras coming out in the future. There's always going to be a better camera. So if you don't need to upgrade something right now, then just hold on to what you have. If you need to upgrade your camera, like let's say you have an R or maybe a DSLR or something that you're using as a B cam and you want to get a mirrorless camera or something that's closer to the R5C, then yeah, if you need it now, buy the R7. If you have an R7 and you want to think about upgrading to the R6 Mark II, then, you can, yeah. I still think the R7 is a great B cam for any of the cameras that are out right now. R5C, C70, R3, R5. It's pretty much a dead match with the R5. I made a video about that, other than full frame and crop sensor. Yeah, it's still an awesome B cam, especially at the price point. And it's smaller. It's small. It's a great camera. I mean, I still have it. I keep telling myself I'll make a few videos with it and then I'll sell it to buy something else, but I still have it. It's a powerful camera. It always surprises me. Got a lot of questions about FX30 versus A7 III. Real questions. Pizza is my favorite food for sure. Always has been. I make my own pizza like every other week or so. I've been doing that for like 10 years. So pizza for sure. And it's funny because I feel like growing up, it's like, oh, pizza's a kid's food, but no, man, pizza's amazing. All right, Trader Joe, let's see. I think Sony will bring an update of the A1 soon. New autofocus display like the A7R5. Looks like Canon's a bit ahead of the Sony autofocus-wise, at least right now. I don't think we're going to see the A1 Mark II for a while, but, I mean, I don't know. Also, it was weird. They put out the, A7R3A? Is that what it was called? Or A7R4A? The one that had the updated screen, which I didn't really understand that release. But I don't think we're going to see the A1 Mark II for a little while. I just wish they would update their cameras. And I know you've probably seen other filmmakers and content creators complaining about it too. Like the A1, the A7S III, the FX3, they should have all the same features as the A7 IV, focus breathing compensation, bird autofocus. Like that stuff's all in the FX30, which is like half the price of the FX3. So I'm sure everyone's sick of hearing these rants. In terms of, it's been really interesting. I did a live stream with Jay, who's in the comments here, about the A7R5 on announcement day. And in a lot of ways, it's super similar to the Canon R5. And I didn't really think about it until we started talking about it and how similar it is. Of course, the A7R5 has more megapixels than the Canon R5. But the R5 has better video in a lot of ways than the A7R5. And it's crazy that camera came out 2 years ago. And since they fixed the overheating and that update, it's crazy. So let's see here. Yeah, I think that the A1 Mark II, I'm guessing before the next Olympics, would make the most sense to me to come out with a new flagship camera. I think there's a lot of people speculating that the R1 will come out before the next Olympics, so in 2024. I don't know. I'm just guessing like everybody else. I don't know the answers to any of these questions. Yeah, so I think the issue, which I did talk about earlier, is I think the base has always been 800 because it's the same sensor as the FX6, which has a base of 800. So I don't know why the 640-800 thing. But again, that's like a third of a stop, and I don't know. It's not like you're changing the second base at all. I'm curious. I'm probably not going to do this testing, but I'd be curious to see 640 versus 800 in flexible ISO and see what the difference is if one has more dynamic range than the other. I think it's always been 800, but they said it's a 6. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this question, but I don't think they can change like 2500 on the FX30 to like 6400. I just think that's part of the hardware. What's up, Tyler? Good seeing you here, buddy. Hope you're getting some rest, man. Jay's there's the tough questions coming in tonight. What food I crave, favorite lens. I think my all-time favorite lens is the RF 15-35, although I do love my 100-500. I just haven't shot with it much lately. Let's see. Yeah, that I own. I mean, those are two of my favorite lenses that I own, but I am a sucker for a Fast 50 as well, so which I don't own. Thanks, Tyler. Hey, Ernesto, R3 or R5C? This really depends on what you're doing. I love the R3. Yeah, if you ask me, do you want if someone said you can have one of the other, for me personally, I'd take the R3. That camera's amazing. Battery life's incredible. The feel of the camera, the autofocus is super, super good. There are some things about the R5C that will give you better image quality. You know, you can shoot 8K raw internal. You'll get more dynamic range probably on the R5C in RAW than you will get. Actually, I don't know the answer to that question. Dynamic range of the R5C in 8K RAW versus dynamic range of the R3 in 6K RAW. I don't know. In terms of photography, you know, if you need high megapixels, then you know what your answer is. You should get the R5C. But yeah, the R3 is just a pleasure to use. And the biggest thing is the battery life. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I don't want to own the R5C is the battery is just atrocious on that camera. It's barely usable unless you put like external power on it and rig it up. So it's a tough question for sure. Personally, I would probably take the R3 though. But I'm not like, you know, everyone's got different use cases and stuff. I think overall the R5C is going to produce better video though, for sure. I'm not answering this question. I'm not getting involved here. You have both and you're trying to decide which one to keep. Well, if you have both, you're in a great situation. I mean, you'll know which one's better for you. If you have both, it's harder when you don't have the cameras and you're trying to figure out which one to buy. I would just keep using both, and then which one you wind up leaving home more often is the one you should sell. There's pros and cons of both cameras for sure. What settings and bit rates am I using? I'm streaming in 1080. I'm using Ecamm. I'm not going to talk about the camera I'm using yet. I've been switching around my studio camera a lot, and I want to dial this in before I start talking about it because I keep changing things up. But I'm using the Atomos Cast as my device that brings the HDMI into the computer. I don't have great bitrate here because my internet is terrible. I have very slow upload speeds here, and so Ecamm throttles back my bitrate usually pretty often. So I don't know. If it's looking good tonight, that's awesome. Maybe my kids aren't playing too many video games. Pineapple on pizza. I haven't had it in a long time. I guess I could go either way. If someone gave me pineapple pizza, I would eat it, but I probably wouldn't order it. Is that a bad answer? I feel like that's a politician answer. R7 versus FX30. I made a very detailed video about this. Hopefully you got a chance to check it out. Basically came down to the fact that if you want an EVF and you take photos, get the R7. If you're just doing video or almost all video, I'd get the FX30. Image quality is super similar. FX30 has a little bit more dynamic range, better lens options on the FX30. Depends what other cameras you're shooting with. Like if you're going to wind up pairing with Sony cameras or Canon cameras, what kind of glass do you own? You could go either way. I mean, the image is super similar between those two cameras. Low light performance, again, was very similar. They both pretty much performed the same until you got to like 10,000 or 12,100. Then the R7 was just a little bit better. But noise pattern was just like steadily increased through the range, like we were talking about earlier with the dual base ISO situation. So again, you could go either way. It's a great camera, and you know you can add XLR to both of them. I laid out all the things in the video. This is the hard part is when someone asks me a question like, should I get this camera or that camera? Like it's usually a conversation because you got to figure out what's more important to you. There's trade-offs with every camera. I don't think you go wrong with either one. And for $1,500 or $1,800, like they're amazing video cameras and will be powerful for years to come. Oh, interesting. All right, so speculating about the new, an updated FX3. I don't think we're gonna see it for a while. I don't know. I just don't see it for a while. I feel like we're still we got to get through the A9 Mark III first, and then they've updated all their cameras to 10-bit with the new color science, and then they'll start going back through the other cameras. They also owe, the market, I hope to see some APS-C cameras. Like, I want to see the FX30 in a hybrid body with an EVF for less money without a fan, right? So like I want to see the R7 version of the FX30. Then we'll start talking about FX3 Mark II and those sorts of things. I'm also really curious what's going to happen with the A7S III, if there is going to be an A7S4 or there's going to make an FX3 Mark II. I think for a lot of people, I don't know. I think it's going to be a while. I hope that we see APS-C stuff come out. That's my hope. Yep. Yeah. Sorry, Tyler. I just saw your comment. Yep. That's what for sure. Will EFS lenses work on the R7 in 60 frames a second, or they only work in 24 and 30? Yeah, they'll work. I don't see why not. Yeah. That's weird. They don't work. I don't know. Yeah, it should. 60 frames a second works. There's two modes. There's two 60 frames a second modes on the R7. One is a line skip mode with no crop, and then there's a crop mode. So you're not going wider than you were at 24 or 30 frames a second, so it should work. I mean, I also use the Sigma 18 to 35 on the R7 with no problem. R3 is better dynamic range. Oh, there you go. Tyler's got the answer. I haven't tested those two against each other. I'm guessing you're talking about the RAW, like 6K versus 8K, Tyler? Tyler's on it tonight. Yeah, until Panasonic comes out with phase detect autofocus, like, they're just not competitive in the autofocus world. That's not why you're going to get that camera for video. R5 or FX3 for video. If you're just doing video, FX3. If you're doing photography at all, R5. R5 is such a killer hybrid camera, and it's amazing how well it's held up since they've fixed overheating. And it's competitive with a brand new $3,900 camera from Sony that just came out that costs the same amount of money. So it really depends on what you're doing. But if you're doing all video, the FX3 is pretty, yeah, it's awesome. Rokinon glass. I don't think I've ever used a Rokinon lens. You guys are asking great questions. R7 or A7 IV? I'd take the A7 IV. I love the A7 IV. Full frame. Yeah, A7 IV. It's also a lot more expensive, Jay. Always update your computer if you need to, man. That's gonna frustrate you way more than a new camera. You got way more cameras than I have, man. That's a lot of cameras. Oh, thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the kind words. I don't know. It's just how I am. It's funny because, and this is why live streams are great, because you just get to like hear me talk, and I'm just here with you guys. It was funny when I started my other channel, and over the years, and I'd meet people and they'd talk to me like, "Hey, you're like the same guy that you are in the videos." I'm like, "Yeah, that's who I am." So, thanks so much. Really enjoyed the live streams, and have basically binged your channel after finding it last month. Your respects. Oh, thank you so much. Very cool. Well, he said new camera or new computer, so that means you already have a computer and you already have a camera. So, just to be fair. All right, let's get some more questions in here. I'm on no timeline, but happy to hang out and answer questions and chat. What are your thoughts on the Sigma 18 to 50 f2.8? I haven't used that lens, so I can't speak on it, but I've never really been disappointed with Sigma lenses. They're always optically really good. And is that the crop sensor one? Is that the Sony crop sensor one? Or is it on Fuji too? I can't remember. I haven't been paying attention to that lens because it was just not on my radar. Like the comment earlier about there's way too much to pay attention to. I'm sure it's great. Yeah, Sigma's got some cool zooms for sure, and the primes as well. So I haven't used it, so I can't really give you an opinion on it. Any shotgun mics that can be mounted on the R7 hot shoe that you can recommend? Yeah, there's a ton of great microphones out there. So the best thing always you want to do with any audio situation is get the microphone as close to the subject as possible. Of course, you can't always put a huge dynamic microphone in front of someone's face, but usually in here I have a microphone boomed right up here, which I'm not using tonight. But if you need to put a microphone on top of the camera, let's say you're vlogging or something like that, the one that I pretty much always use is the older one. It's the VideoMic Pro Plus from Rode. That's my favorite. Even though there is newer ones like the VideoMic NTG, I like the sound of that one for whatever reason. Just with my voice, it has a little bit more bass in it. But there's amazing microphones out there from Rode, from Deity, at pretty much every price point. I would say you probably want something that has power in the microphone. It'll have its own amplification. It'll sound better. There's so many options out there. It's really just depending on features and price point and stuff like that. Some have dial controls on the back, some don't. But I still use that VideoMic Pro Plus that I bought years ago. A7 III or FX30. FX30, yeah, for sure. I mean, we had the same discussion about the A7 III versus the FX30. The A7 III and the A7C are basically the same camera with a different body. So again, the benefits here, we're getting 8-bit versus 10-bit video. We're getting the new color science, higher 4K frame rates. Yeah, FX30 for sure. It's a much newer camera. And yeah, I mean, you give up full frame, but yeah, I would definitely trade all that for sure. Yeah, I did watch Brandon's video. I even commented on it. Yeah, I felt the same way about that camera. And yeah, it's true. I think it's important that it was great he brought up that point. If you haven't checked out Brandon Washington's channel, go check it out. He's a great filmmaker and creator, and he's got great perspectives on things. And I feel like he just talks to you, which is awesome. And he's very talented as well. So in that video, he talked about like how a camera can make you feel something. It can motivate you, get you excited, and it's one of those things that's like not a spec. It's not something you can measure, but all of us sort of know that when you pick up a certain camera, it makes you excited to go shoot with it, or a camera you pick up, you're kind of like, whatever. I'm not saying that about the FX30 as I point to it, but I think that it's important that your tools excite you to create, because we remember we are creating video, we're creating images, we're creating art. And so, whatever you have should excite you to do that. And sometimes you might take a camera that doesn't have as good specs or whatever because you enjoy using it. And there's a lot of situations for that. So I think it was really cool that he brought that up. And I think that, yeah, I agreed with him about the R3 for sure. I do not have this video. It's on my list of videos to make this week. So look for that in the next week or so. I do need to make that video. I did this for C-Log 3 on the R5 and R7. So if you want to check out that, it's going to be very similar to that. So if you want a head start, you can watch that. It'll just have different numbers and stuff, but it's the same process with shooting inside, shooting outside, how to do some basic color corrections. But yeah, it's on my list of videos to make. So we'll see it probably within the next week or so, as long as I can get all these videos done. But I don't have the video yet for S-Log 3. If Canon is going to RF mounts, what's the reason they don't make a C70? They didn't make the C70 full frame. Well, I can only speculate on a lot of this stuff, but the fact is that a lot of the Canon cinema cameras have been Super 35. There's always been a few that are full frame, but if you think about C100, C200, C300, those are all Super 35 sensors. And so when the C300 Mark III came out, that was a Super 35 sensor, and so they basically took that sensor and rehoused it in the C70. So to me, the C70 was kind of like the budget version of the C300 Mark III with the same sensor. So you can also have mounts that are bigger. So like there are, the R7, right? The R10, like you can have crop sensor or APS-C or Super 35 cameras in a larger mount. Same thing with Sony, right? We have crop sensors in the E mount, which is a full frame mount. So it is what it is. Also, that sensor, I think, would have been crazy expensive as a full frame sensor, and the processing and everything with the DGO and the crazy dynamic range. I mean, the sensor in the C70 and the C300 Mark III is very, very, very nice. I love that image. So I think that's just what they were making at the time. Will we see a full frame version of it? I don't know. We'll see. There is the C500 Mark II, but it's not the same sensor. And I think some people prefer the C300 Mark III or C70 image over the C500 Mark II. So it's just part of the DNA of what they've been making. And, a lot of cinema cameras are Super 35. Like Sony makes full frame cinema cameras, but you look at a lot of cameras, Alexa, Red, Canon, a lot of them are Super 35. So I hope they make a full frame version of the C70. That would be that'd be amazing. I would want one for sure. Oh, nice. Yeah, that is not my jam, but it's very cool when I see people doing it. There's a follow up to the R3 and camera's exciting you sort of thing. Yeah, that is funny, isn't it? That is. Yeah, I mean, the A7C was such an interesting release. It was just like a way to sort of extend the A7 III for another year, in my opinion. It was like, we'll offer this smaller camera. It's better for content creation, but it was an A7 III inside. And a little bit more limiting in some ways just because, it had a flip screen. That was a huge upgrade. Never mind, I take that back. That was a huge upgrade that it had a flip screen versus the A7 III has that tilty screen. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Interesting. All right. One thing about the R3 that I loved was the EVF is so big on that. So if you do use the EVF, it's just like, usually I'm like moving my eyeball around inside to try to get to see everything. That thing is like, I just feel like I'm just looking right through it. It was awesome. Hey, let's see. So is it worth buying the R7 with cheap RF primes or waiting until there are wide aperture RFS lenses? So I don't think we're going to get wide aperture RFS lenses. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think from what I've seen from Canon in the past, I don't think we're going to see that. Now, if they open up to third-party manufacturers and Sigma can make their 1.4 primes, like if they can put the 16, like the 1630 and 56, those would be fantastic. They made them for EFM, so they could probably make them for RF, but they can't do it right now. I don't think we're going to see Canon RFS with fast apertures. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to have to use full frame lenses to get fast aperture on in an RF mount on an RF camera. The inexpensive primes are good for what they are, and especially if they have issue. One thing is when you have, if you have camera lenses that have issues like corner sharpness and stuff like that, when you're using an APS-C camera, you're just selecting out the center of the image. So sometimes you can get away with using lenses that maybe aren't as great on the edges. So those are great options. The 24 gives you roughly like a little bit more than a 35. so that's a great option. The 50 is super cheap. It's like it's like on sale right now for like 150 or 160, which will give you like an 80. And then there's the 35. I do like the 35 a lot. So there's a lot of options. I think that's probably your best bet. There's also, you know, I made a whole video about lens options for the R7 if you want to check that out. But if you're into prime lenses, then yeah, those are great for sure. Especially for what they cost and being native. The best camera to use for cooking videos. I think the bigger question is, what lenses do you need? I think you should start there. So think about where you're filming, you know, and think about the kinds of lenses you need, and you'll probably figure that out. You know, any of these cameras we're talking about will be fine. Just figure out what your budget is. I think you should really always factor in lighting and audio too, because you can make your cooking videos look incredible by tweaking lighting, and that's going to make way more of a difference than your camera. And that and audio are things that are probably more important than the camera. So it's part of the equation for sure. But any of these cameras will be fine. You can create great content. We're just here nerding about specs and all this stuff with certain cameras. Yeah, I do have to say that I'm really blown away by the cheap Sony primes. Like the 35-1.8 is amazing, and I own that lens, and I do think it's better than the Canon one, the Canon RF35. It's a little bit more expensive. I think it's like $6 something versus, well, that lens is on sale for $400 right now, but usually it's $500. I haven't used the 85s, but I have heard good things about the Sony 85-1.8. The Canon 85 f2, I've heard had some autofocusing issues. I haven't tried that lens either. Wish I have tried all these lenses, but yeah, they're just different. And one thing is that the Canon lenses, they're putting stabilization in the lenses, which aren't in the Sony cameras, so that's a benefit. Some of them have macro capabilities and stuff like that, so there are trade-offs for sure. But the 35 and the 85 from Sony are the 1.8s. Those are awesome lenses, and I think they are better than the Canon ones for sure. But that's why when you're deciding between cameras, that one of the biggest things is thinking about the lenses and the lenses that you need and the whole system. I hope so, Tyler. I do hope so. Yeah, that lens. Yeah, that lens was great at the time for sure. Hey Pat. Hey Daniel. Thank you so much. So I do have an A7 IV, which is gonna be probably my main Sony camera for a while, and I definitely want to put it up against the R6 Mark II. It's also my favorite Sony images are coming out of the A7 IV or the A1. Those are personally my favorite in terms of color science and sharpness and detail and stuff like that. I saw there was a firmware, but it didn't say anything about overheating. So I don't know. Maybe I missed that. It was like a really minor thing, so I haven't done it yet. It came out a couple days ago. It's like 1.11. Do I remember that correctly? I don't know if that number's right. I didn't see anything about overheating though, and I haven't been using it for long form stuff because of my experiences. So I'd have to as I said, I had trouble recreating the overheating. It happened to me those 3 times, but I had trouble recreating it in certain situations. I have an A7S III debating on a second camera. My budget is tight, looking at 2023 to get a second one. Yeah, the best thing you can, if you need a second camera, the best thing is having 2 of the same. Man, that makes your life so much easier. If you've ever had 2 of the same camera, oh man, it's like you're shooting something, they match completely. It's great. How is the A7 IV 60p versus the FX30 60p? I have not compared those yet. I am hoping to do an A7 IV versus FX30 video. That is on my list of videos. So I will definitely check that out. That is definitely a question mark. So the A7 IVs, I haven't used the 60p in that. It's only crop. Does anyone know what the oversample is? I feel like it's like 4 point something K versus like the FX30's 4K 60 is a 6K oversample. So I'm guessing that you'll probably get a sharper image out of the FX30, but you'll get less noise in the A7 IV. That's what I'd guess just from using the cameras, but I haven't done that test. Saw something from you saying that the latter has more noise. Yeah, I would guess that too. And that was like also because I just know how because I compared the FX3 and the FX30, and the FX3 was cleaner like across the board. So, and I know the A7 IV is cleaner than the FX3, so in terms of noise. But 4K 60, I don't know. It's been a long time since I shot in that mode. I'll have to test that for sure. Keep a lookout. But that would be my guess. I mean, full frame benefits are usually you get better low light performance, like less noise, generally speaking here. You'll be able to control your depth of field more, get a more shallow depth of field if that's something that's important to you. Now, when you're cooking, I mean, I haven't filmed a lot of cooking, but you don't want, like, you're going to be there cooking, so you won't want a really shallow depth of field because you want to be able to see you cooking and all the food. So if like right now, like if I was shooting super shallow depth of field, then you wouldn't be able to see what's in front of me that's in focus. So I know a lot of YouTubers shoot wide open at f1.4, 1.8, and then they'll hold something and you can't even see it. So I try not to do that. I try, like, the microphone is pretty much in focus right now. And so I don't want to have things in front of me be out of focus. So that won't be as much of a benefit for you if you're doing cooking shows. I would say, yeah, I wouldn't say that necessarily matters as much because you want more in focus. Yeah, the 21.8's a cool lens for sure. That one's a little bit pricier though because that's a G lens, but yeah, that's still like $800. Still, I'd say that's a step above the like 35, 85, and then the RF lenses. I think that the 21.8 is a G lens, so it's a little bit nicer. $35mm macro. I'm guessing that's the RF lens. The 24-70 f2.8 is an amazing lens. Like that's a very, I'm guessing you're talking about the RFL lens. That's an awesome lens. Yeah, see, this is the thing. We start talking about Sony lenses, and you go on and on and on. So the new pancake lenses, there's so many options. And then there's Sony makes them. Sigma also makes those sort of similar lenses. So many options for Sony. That's why if you're in the Sony ecosystem, you just, every price point, every size lens, zooms, weird zoom ranges, it's awesome. Thanks for coming. Yeah, so I was sort of talking about this a little bit earlier on in the stream. I was hoping to do these every like 2 or 3 weeks, but then it all got mixed up and I don't know. But yeah, it's fun. Nice. Yeah, so the 100 to 5, yeah, so I don't know what video I talked about this in, or maybe it was a live stream, but I don't remember. But yeah, the RF 100 to 500 is such a cool lens. It is a very expensive lens, but I definitely preferred it over the Sony 200 to 600. That lens, the Sony 200 to 600, if you're into wildlife or, shooting stuff far away, is a crazy value. Like, I think it's $2,000. If it goes on sale, you can get a little bit cheaper. Maybe buy a used one for like $1,600. That lens is amazing in terms of image quality and the range you get, and it's a little bit faster than the 100 to 500, but it is bigger. It is way bigger and heavier, and the stabilization in the RF 100 to 500, especially when you pair it with the R cameras, is just absolutely incredible. Like, it's such a unique lens. So yeah, but it is very expensive. Yeah, I mean, Martin, this is the thing. When I first started reporting on the A7 IV overheating, people got all worked up and upset with me, and they were like, I never had overheat. And I'm like, I'm just telling you what happened to me. Like, I hope it doesn't overheat for anybody. It's just the fact that I did have it overheat on me 3 times in 3 weeks. So it is what it is. If you're shooting shorter bursts or you're not in hot climates, it's not an issue whatsoever. So it is one of those things. And yes, I had the auto temp setting off to high. It was, the screen was open on a tripod, like all those things. I don't know if I could change the hey there. That's just ingrained in me. That's how I've opened every video, not every video, but most of my videos on my farming channel. It's just, I don't know. What's up, guys? Like, I don't know. It's my own thing. Yeah, we'll see. I like mirrorless better, but everyone's got preferences. Bye, Tyler. Good to see you in here, man. Predictions for 2023. These are so hard for me. It's hard to even think about what I'm looking for. I just want to see more Canon RF lenses. I'd love to see them open up the mount for other manufacturers. That would be absolutely massive. I would love to see an R5 Mark II. I think that's going to be a little ways off as well. And I was thinking about this for a while just because, the R5 is now 2 years old. But they also came out with the R5C, which sort of answered a lot of the things that people had concerns and frustrations with the R5. That's going to be a little ways off. I'd love to see some more cinema cameras come out. And the big thing I think we're going to start seeing after the A9 Mark III comes out from Sony is, well, I don't know if it's coming out. I assume it's coming out, is the APS-C stuff. And from the rumors I saw recently about Canon, we're going to start seeing some more inexpensive RF mount APS-C cameras. So I saw rumors about like the M50 replacement. I saw that in the last couple days. These are all rumors. I don't know any of these things, guys. I'm not tuned into this stuff. But yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know if that's enough, but I have no idea. Like, things come out of left field and I'm like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming. The FX30 was a surprise. Like, this one was weird to me. Yeah, we'll see what happens. What do you guys think? Anything you guys think you'd like to see or you think is coming? R3 and the R5C, but I'm guessing that's overkill. Maybe the Rs. You already have the cameras. Use them. Those are great cameras. Like, amazing cameras. Congrats. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing. If you have shot on other Sony cameras, the FX3, FX30 with that new menu system, and if you want to shoot in Cine, it is definitely a learning curve. It's definitely different. So I made a video with all the setup guide for the FX30 if you want to check that out, going through all the menu and stuff for shooting video. That's probably a good place to start, but it takes practice. And if you're just tuning in, I will be coming out with a video tomorrow about just getting started with Cine, some of the basics without getting into some of the more advanced stuff. I did make a full detailed video about Cine, which you can check out on the FX3. It works exactly the same on the FX30. So a lot of stuff there. Yeah, that's what we were saying before about Tamron coming out with crazy cool lenses. Like 17 to 70 on the FX30 gives you an amazing range. So yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing about the A7 IV. For like normal stuff, it's usually fine. If you're really pushing the camera, like I was streaming and recording, or just long record times out in the sun, like, it is a hybrid camera, right? If you need a video camera, get the FX3 or the FX30 or the A7S III or the FX6. The A7 IV is a hybrid. It's always been a hybrid. It's the A7 line. And that's the same thing with the other hybrid cameras, like you're buying an R5 or an R7. These are hybrid cameras. They're not video cameras. If you need a video camera, you're going to get the R5C. You're going to get the C70. So you have to keep that in mind when people, when it overheats, it's frustrating, but you have to also realize that like it has crazy photography capabilities as well. It is a hybrid camera, and I think that's where we all like buy these cameras because they have crazy video specs, but you have to remember that it is a hybrid camera. So it happens when you start pushing it for sure. But good to know that it didn't have an issue with the dummy battery. But for me, it was when I was doing that, streaming and recording internally. I don't remember all the settings though. Good night, Jay. Thanks for coming by. Cool. Did you get your questions answered, Mystery Bar? Let me know if you haven't. Yes, that is a huge wish list. Yeah, VNDs inside the camera. Yes, please. Especially Sony's VND is, if you've never used an FX6 or an FX9, I think it was in some of the older FS cameras as well. It is the coolest thing. It's like actually variable with a knob instead of like hard stops like in the Canon cinema cameras. It's like 2, 4, 6, and when you hit it, like you see it. But this you can like change it while you're recording, and it's smooth. Yeah, I want to see that for sure in a mirrorless camera. That'll be, once they start doing that, man, that's that's where we're gonna be. That's gonna be awesome. Yeah, I'm really curious to see what happens with Panasonic in the next round when you start seeing the S1H Mark II, the S5 Mark II, those cameras. If they put phase detect autofocus in there, like we can talk, and I'll definitely pick one up, but we'll see. Yeah, that we need the R7 version of the FX30. Yeah, a hybrid APS-C Sony camera would be awesome. They are so overdue for that. It's crazy. Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm gonna put the ZV-10 up to the FX30. I'm curious. I think the ZV-10 can hold its own for a lot of situations. That camera is very good, especially for the price point. It is an 8-bit camera and it's older. Doesn't have all the bells and whistles and stuff, but still pretty solid. Hey, good seeing here. Thanks for coming. The FX30 preamps, they're totally fine. I mean, I'm not an audiophile. I'm not like a hardcore audio person, but using the top handle, I use it often on the FX3. So I don't know if the FX30 handles the audio any differently than the FX3 with the same handle. Maybe someone out there does know. But for me, it sounds good, and I don't have to sync anything. And yeah, I have had no complaints about the FX3 audio. So. Yeah, I'm constantly changing cameras, and that's kind of why I have a channel about cameras, because I'm constantly changing them around. But also keep in mind that, people ask me all the time, like, what are you using? What cameras do you use? And I'm like, I have a weird job where I test cameras and make videos about cameras, so I'm always kind of changing things around. So, I'll get a camera that I think will solve a problem, and then I'll have an issue with it, and then I'm on to the next camera. So, yeah. I do have favorites, though. I do have cameras that I like coming back to and using and those sorts of things. But I think a lot of us are in this world where we'll get a camera and we're like, oh, the R5C, it's incredible. And then you get and you're like, oh, the battery life or whatever. And then you're like, oh, maybe the C70, maybe the R3, maybe a Sony camera. And you're just back and forth. And I've had these conversations with a lot of people. And it's funny that you wind up like, buying and selling cameras and everyone's having the same conversations and no one can like find one thing that they love. But, and the other thing is your needs change. Like when I was doing my farming content, I needed a different camera than what I use for this kind of stuff. Most of the time I'm in here talking to the camera, or I'm out doing testing with cameras and those sorts of things. So my needs have changed and they're different, versus doing client work or versus, shooting interviews or documentaries or those sorts of things. Our needs change. And also as your skills progress, sometimes you do want to upgrade your camera to get other features. And so, yeah, things change a lot. But thanks for watching all the videos. It's really cool. Oh, man. No, it's a struggle. Here's the thing, like, there's the cameras I'm reviewing, but then I'm also using cameras to make videos. And so there's always things I'm looking for in cameras that I need to use to do my job. So there's struggles with that for sure. I'm always like, should I use this? Should I use that? What lens works? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, the thing for me is I haven't shot a lot of that stuff. So what I'd probably do if you're doing a lot of cooking stuff, I would probably try to get in touch with some other content creators that do food and find ones that you think look cool and just shoot them a DM and say, hey, like, I have this channel. I'm curious, what kind of gear you use. I'd love to chat, like, but don't just like bombard them with questions. Try to offer them something too and try to be polite about it. But that's what I'd probably do is, if you see a certain style that you like, try to get in touch with the creator. I've had conversations with some people that have cooking channels and, they're taking their video very seriously and it looks great. And so I think a lot of it comes down to lighting though. And I said that earlier for sure. I don't think that the camera is, I'll just say it's going to be lighting and lensing for the most part and audio. That's probably the biggest thing. There's struggles that I can't think of because I haven't been in that situation too much. All these cameras can do the job that you're talking about. It's just a matter of finding the right balance that you need. Also, I'm guessing with cooking stuff, you probably want to have multiple angles. And if you do want to have multiple angles, the best thing you can do is get the same camera for multiple angles because matching them will be super great. So if you have a certain budget and you want to buy one really nice camera, I'd probably buy two cameras that match that are a little bit cheaper. So you can get two angles, like maybe one's a front shot, one's over the shoulder, one's a top down. I don't know what angles you're looking for, but having different cameras at different focal lengths in different locations that match, that's huge. Absolutely huge. I don't know if I'm answering your question, Mystery Bar. I'm trying to help here. The R3 mystery? I don't think I know what that is. All right. Well, I think I might wrap things up tonight. We covered a lot of stuff, and it was great to hang out and chat. Again, hit the like button. Hit subscribe if you're not already. It would be greatly appreciated. A lot of cool content coming up about the FX30, and it's saying that the R6 Mark II should be shipping, I think, on the 29th. So that's like the Monday or Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So if I won't have a live stream before Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody, if you're in the United States. And thanks for coming by tonight, or if you're watching this later. Appreciate all the support. It's been a crazy journey so far, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So thank you, everybody, for coming and checking out the videos, and take care.